The San Francisco 49ers. Is it time for them to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo to move on to Trey Lance? How is this team going to develop under Trey Lance in control? How is Kyle Shanahan going to be able to do without his former starting quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, or if Jimmy G is leaving for that matter? Are they a threat in the NFC this year? This is a really interesting, but not, it's an interesting team in the 49ers, but at the same time, I feel like this is a team where they can do some damage, but they're also a team that could be beatable as well. But let's take a look at the schedule and see what we got to offer. It's your boy James here. Let's get started, rocking and rolling. As soon as I can get the schedule pulled up, here we go. Let's get started. Okay, so the San Francisco 49ers, they're going to start out their first week on the road in Chicago. Now, I talked about this when I did my Chicago Bears season prediction video. I can see this game going really either way. I think they're not exactly evenly matched. I think the 49ers are actually a well-rounded team over the Bears for sure. But here's the thing, though. It's going to really heavily depend on who the starting quarterback is going to be. If it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo, chances are the 49ers can win in a tough city in Chicago. However, with Trey Lance, because of the ifs and buts about Trey Lance, and we're not really sure in how his play is going to be because we haven't seen him play enough yet to show and prove that he is a starting caliber quarterback for this team. I'd say Chicago would more than likely probably win that game. So I think right now, and I could do another video of this later on, if Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback, I'm going to pick Chicago to win in the first game. And the reasons, like I've explained before, is Chicago is a very, very rowdy place to play. It's not easy for any quarterback to play in, whether the Bears are good or if they're bad. But simply, if you're starting Trey Lance, this is a really tough environment to really start his first full season as a 49er into the Chicago homeland. So that's a tough place for him to play. I think if Trey Lance does start, he's going to struggle a little bit in that Chicago atmosphere. So I'm going to take the Chicago's to do somewhat of an upset over the 49ers. If it's Jimmy G, then I could see the 49ers being able to pull that off just slightly, but I think with Trey Lance, I have to go with the Bears on that one. I think that's just too much. I think it's too much of a atmosphere for Trey Lance that would be able to handle. Week 2, you have the Seattle Seahawks traveling to San Francisco. I'm gonna pick the 49ers to win that game. But I also think that there's a good possibility where they could split this year. So I think the 49ers will win at home and Seattle will win on a Thursday night in week 15 in Seattle on Thursday Night Football. I think with that team, with Seattle, while they're not the greatest team in the world, I think they're going to take another step back like they did last year. But I think playing in that Seattle atmosphere is going to be very challenging for Trey Lance. And I don't see them really being able to sweep the Seahawks in that matter. So that's why I'm taking the 49ers to win that game. Then you go into week 3, you have the 49ers at the Broncos. This is actually a very intriguing matchup because I think both of these teams have a stellar defense, and the Broncos have the better quarterback in this game by far, but he's on a brand new team now. And early on in that season, we've seen it with Tom Brady when he went to the Buccaneers. We've seen it with Peyton Manning when he went over to the Broncos. They tend to struggle a little bit in a new system. So I think it's going to take a little bit for Russell Wilson to get adjusted to it. So I don't think they're going to win in a comfortable match. However, I'm taking the Broncos to win for this reason. It's because they are playing in Mile High. Mile High is a very weird place to play. Any quarterback that has ever played there before and continues to play there throughout the season, whether if you're in the AFC West or play them on a regular basis, you will know that the Denver atmosphere and that stadium itself and their climate is definitely makes it very difficult for many teams to travel into. And since San Francisco is a much warmer climate than Denver is, that makes things very interesting and more challenging for the Niners to do. So I'm going to take the Denver Broncos to win in week 3. I think that climate does make a difference for San Francisco in that aspect. So I'm taking the Broncos to win in week 3. Week 4, you've got the Rams on a Monday night traveling to San Francisco. This is another game that's going to be very good. It's a rematch from last year's NFC division. The 49ers typically have a lot of success in playing Sean McVay and the Rams. I think they're going to split with them this year, though. I think they're going to win on a Monday night in San Fran, and then they're going to lose on the road in Los Angeles in week 8. I think this Rams team and Sean McVay has Kyle Shanahan and that defense being figured out a little bit more after beating them in that NFC championship game. So I don't think that I don't think Kyle Shanahan is going to be able to. I don't think it's going to be really an easy game for either one of these teams. Kind of a division rival in some ways. So I think with them splitting this year, I think it's more realistic. I can't see the 49ers and Trey Lance doing it twice in a row. I just don't see that. If Trey Lance is starting, I just don't see that. That's going to be very challenging to do. So they're going to split with the Rams this year. I'm going to take that. Week 5, they play the Panthers in Carolina. They should win that game. Week 6, it's going to be an interesting game because I feel like with now that it's not because Dan Quinn is not there anymore in Atlanta. They have a new coach there now, and Arthur Smith, who's going to be in his second year. But the Falcons in recent times have had some success with the 49ers, except for last year. So I can kind of see this being kind of like a trap game for either one of these two teams. But I think at the end of the day, I don't really think the Falcons are a very good team, really. And I think Kyle Shanahan, that defensive line that he has, is just too strong for Marcus Mariota and the Falcons. So I'm taking the 49ers to win that game as well. Week 7 will be interesting. You've got Kansas City at San Francisco. This is going to be a rematch from the Super Bowl from 3 seasons ago. This is going to be an interesting game. I think the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan is going to want to have their revenge on the Chiefs. But I think this Chiefs team, their offense is just a little bit too good that I don't think San Francisco's defense is going to be able to match up with very well, despite them having to lose Tyreek Hill. Just think about what the Kansas City Chiefs do have still in play. They have Juju Smith-Schuster, who they have signed. They have McCole Hartman that can make some big plays. They have Travis Kelce. They now have Ronald Jones as a running back. I think he's going to end up splitting time with Clyde Edwards-Helaire because I just don't see that team really being a running team. So they do have some good weapons around them still, just not anywhere Tyreek style, but they're all still going to be too good. And I think that offensive line for Kansas City is actually better than they were a year or two ago. That it's going to be tough for the 49ers to be able to get to Patrick Mahomes and being able to stop him. So I'm going to take Kansas City to win in San Francisco in week 7. Week 8, we already talked about that. It's the Rams. Then you're looking into the bye week, and then you have a 4-4 record. So that's not great, but it's not terrible either. It could be a lot worse. That 5th loss comes to later on in the season with the loss to the Seahawks. So then you come off the bye week and you play the Chargers. Now, this could be a really good game. I think this game could really go either way. But when I did my Chargers prediction video, I took the 49ers, and I'm going to stick with that. I feel like this is like a weird kind of upset kind of game that I can actually see Kyle Shanahan and that defense being able to pull off. I think as much as I love Justin Herbert and the Chargers, sometimes when he does play teams that have a really good defense, and they get to then they cover their receivers very well. It's very difficult for Justin Herbert. He does make some mistakes, a lot of mistakes when he does play those tough defenses. We've seen it happen his first 2 years. He's a phenomenal quarterback, but when it comes to good defenses, if you can coach a good defense to be able to stop everything that he does, and which I think Kyle Shanahan and that defense is going to be able to do, I picked the 49ers to pull off a what can some may consider an upset. Week 11, you travel to Arizona, which I think in this case, I believe it's going to be in Mexico City. I'm going to pick the Cardinals to win that game on Monday night. I feel like the Cardinals, they're not a stellar team, but I think they're really the only team in this division that's going to give the 49ers trouble this year in terms of being able to either split with them or even win both games. So I think this year, I think the Cardinals are just that team. I think the 49ers defense doesn't really plan all that well against running quarterbacks. And I think with that Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins in that run game, I think it's going to be way too much for the 49ers to be able to handle on the defensive side of the ball. And whether if it's Trey Lance starting and he's playing against the Cardinals, it's not going to be a pretty game for him really either. I think the Cardinals defense is very underrated. I think that defensive line is extremely underrated, and it's going to cause Trey Lance to be, I think he's going to crumple down a little bit. He's going to fall apart a little bit against that defense. It's a tough defense. So that's why I'm picking the Cardinals to actually sweep the 49ers this year. I just think they're the only team that I believe that will sweep them once again. Then you've got the Saints traveling to the 49ers. I could see this game really going either way. I think both of these teams are sneaky good. They're both going to be fighting to go to the playoffs this year, which I think both teams actually will probably make it to the playoffs. But I think at the end of the day, both quarterbacks are very inconsistent, but we know more about Jameis Winston than we do of Trey Lance. So it's really going to depend on the consistency of the quarterback. I believe I did pick I think I picked the 49ers to win that game, and I think I'm going to still stick with that. But I could see the Saints also being pulling off that win as well, because I just think that both of these teams are very sneaky good. I think either one of these teams are very possible in being able to beat each other. So I don't know. This is a tough game to really decide. But I think the 49ers, I think they have just a slighter edge in terms of their defense. And I think if they can do enough on defense to force turnovers from Jameis Winston, then the 49ers should win. However, if that Saints defense is giving Trey Lance problems and they can't score enough on their run game, then I think the Saints can win. But I think that's just kind of a really tough game to really decide on. So I'm going to stick with the 49ers. Then in week 13, you got the Miami Dolphins traveling to San Francisco. The Miami Dolphins with Tyreek Hill is really not all that much better, believe it or not. Honestly, I think the Dolphins can be a good enough team, but they're not a stellar team though. And I think with Tua, that kind of holds them back. I think Miami has everything else good around them. I think they have a good receiving core. The offensive line is a little bit shaky here and there. The defense is pretty good still. It's not stellar. It's not top 5 material, but it's somewhere in the top 15, top 20. I would say top 15 probably. But their defense is pretty good, and they have a good secondary. But really, what keeps them back, honestly, is Tua. I believe. I think Tua really is the only one that really keeps them back, because I think this offense for him is not exactly the most appropriate style of offense that he's good in. So I think it's a tough game to really decide. But again, Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, I picked them because I think I don't think they have a better quarterback, but I think the coaching aspect of it, I think Kyle Shanahan is better than Mike McDaniel. We haven't seen Mike McDaniel yet in action because this is his first season. So I'm going to pick the Niners to win that game. I think it's just very possible. Then you got week 14, you got the Buccaneers traveling to the 49ers. This could be a really good, sneaky game. I could see the 49ers actually winning this game, honestly. I think Kyle Shanahan's defense is very good and able to maybe able to match up with Tom Brady and company well, and they have that home field advantage. So with all honesty, I think the 49ers are going to pull off that upset against Tom Brady. I really have that gutty feeling that they will. I think Trey Lance, as long as he can get the running game going with himself, if they can get the running game going with Debo, and And Trey Lance is very consistent in his passing game. And if he wants to, he can run as well and stay consistent in that. Then the 49ers do win. But again, I wouldn't, obviously the Bucks would be probably the heavier favorite team to win. But I think the 49ers have a potential legitimate reason of why they can pull out an upset. So I'm going to stick with the 49ers. I think they will get that upset with Tom Brady and what may be considered as like a homecoming to him because that's where Brady grew up. We talked about week 15, Seattle on the road. I think they're going to lose that game in Seattle. Seattle's just a really tough place to play. Then you look into week 16, you got the Washington Commanders. This game is another game that I could really see going either way. But I think with the Washington Commanders, it's very tricky with them because I think Carson Wentz as their quarterback is very up and down. Like we don't really know what kind of Carson Wentz we're going to get on that day. I'm not saying that the Washington Commanders can't beat them, but I wouldn't be shocked really either if the 49ers do. I think the 49ers are just a better overall team. I think the quarterback is very similar to, not similar, but I think they're kind of both at the same level. Carson Wentz and Trey Lance are kind of at the same level a little bit. I might put Carson Wentz as just a little bit above because he has more starts than Trey Lance, but I'm taking the 49ers to win that game. I think that defense is what really helps them win that game. Then you got this week 17. I'm picking the Raiders to win that game, and my reasons behind that is pretty valid, I believe, in terms of coaching status. I think Josh McDaniels as a first-year head coach is going to have a really successful year. And with all the offseason stuff they now have Devontae Adams, they have Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. I believe Deshaun Jackson is still there too. They have a good run game with Josh Jacobs as long as they can also balance out the run and the passing game. The Raiders are going to be a pretty tough team to beat. So I think the Raiders will win that one in week 17. Then we talked about the Cardinals. I really think in that division, the Cardinals are the only team I believe that will sweep the 49ers. So at the end of the day, you're looking at a 9-8 record. So that's very, very possible, but it's not my ceiling record. I think the ceiling record for the 49ers, like I said, I think they can win Chicago. I think that's one of the games they can win. Then they beat 10-7, and then we're probably talking playoff spot. Or I could see them losing to I could see them beating probably the Cardinals here, and they could be 11-6. Or I could see them losing to the Buccaneers, and they still beat 10-7. So there are some games in here that I do believe will probably that could make a difference. But honestly, it's very interesting to just see. But I think 9-8 is a pretty good way of really seeing where the 49ers is. I don't think they're a fabulous team per se. I don't think they're a phenomenal team, but I think a 9-8 record for this team is, it's pretty. I would say 9-8 is probably a safe bet for them. Or I could see them beating the Saints too, or losing to the Saints. So that kind of makes everything, it's interesting how it all can be played out. So I think that's how it's going to be. I just want to make sure that because I did have a 9-8 record for them before, but I'm trying to remember where. Oh yeah, it was the Cardinals right here. Okay, so yeah, so a 9-8 record. I think that's where they could be. I think they're going to be just around there. I think they can just make the playoffs. But I also think if they do make the playoffs, I think teams are going to have to prepare for them because I think they're very capable of pulling off any kind of upset as if they are the 7th seed. So that's my record prediction for the 49ers. Let me know what you guys think. What you guys think about the Trey Lance hype. Do you think it's real? Do you think it's just hype? Let me know in the comments down below. And then for the final NFL season prediction video, we will do the Los Angeles Rams. So I will see you all for that.